Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Today, I get to speak with Sean Whalen, who's been on my radar for a few years. He is the founder of Lions Not Sheep, and he came out with a book. You can get it on Amazon right now. It's called How to Make Shit Happen. And it's an easy, quick read. You can get it done in under an hour, more than likely. But the content could possibly change your life. And although I've known Sean very lightly for the last couple of years based on a couple conversations we had about off-road, I had not contacted Sean previously to be on my podcast. And, I believe that all things happen in their own time and for their own reason. And I happen to be on Instagram today doing what we all do, flipping through what people are posting and have going on in their lives. And Sean had a incredibly powerful video about being broken and struggles of life, and that we are all people and that we all have challenges to overcome and nobody's life is perfect. And his message came from the heart to his followers, which came from a message he had seen from Andy Frisella, who's the founder of First Form Nutritional, great protein products and supplements and things like that. And Andy had just lost a friend to suicide. And I know that's a little bit of an epidemic right now, or at least it feels like it. I think a lot of us have been affected. I know that a good friend of mine, and an athlete that I've known for many, many years, had an attempted suicide this last year. And it's sad. And the message that Sean had really resonated with me, and it prompted me to give him a call to ask him to be on my show, because I think we can all hear the stories that he has to tell about life and struggles and how we're all human and how we can all overcome them. So I believe that this is probably one of my best podcast interviews, and I hope you feel the same after listening to it. If you take it to heart, it'll change your life. If you happen to grab his book, I think it'll also change your life. As simple as it is, and it's certainly an easy read, I think it's worth the time and effort to grab it. Again, the book is called How to Make Shit Happen. It's on Amazon. And let me introduce Sean via the phone call today. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Had some great shows recently. If you didn't catch the Sugar Ray Leonard interview before Thanksgiving, please check it out. Had a great time with him. He is such a wonderful and patient person. But today brings me back to my racing roots and somebody that I met through off-road racing. And I've got Sean Whalen on the line. Sean, what's happening?
How are you, man? I'm doing well.
It's good to hear. I got to be honest with you. You weren't on my radar several years ago, and I had a kid on my race team. I know we both have off-road racing roots, and he was wearing your shit all the time. And I really wasn't paying attention until one day I'm like, dude, you're always wearing that Lions Not Sheep stuff. What's that all about? And he goes, oh, this great guy. I met him in the airport and this and that. He's bragging on you. And then he kind of fell off. But then I got a call from you about buying my race truck one day. I'm like, hey, Matt Hill, I think your buddy just called me. So anyways, a small world, and you got a lot of fans out there.
Small world, yeah, no, that's great, man. Cool. Social media has been a really amazing experience for me the last couple of days. So it's great to connect with people.
Well, besides the last couple of days, man, you launch a video and you get millions of hits on those things.
Yeah, I social media was the same for me as it was for most other people years ago. I used it just to watch funny stuff and be entertained and all of that. And then I went through a divorce and a bankruptcy and just kind of some midlife crisis kind of stuff. And one day I shared a story about my divorce and just some really deep stuff, and it went viral. And since then, things have just gotten incredibly huge. They just continue to grow and grow and grow. And, that first post went on to have millions of comments and likes and shares, and it's just continued to grow as I've shared more and more and more about my life and things like that. So it's really been cool. It's been a really cool experience for me.
Isn't it amazing how much time we all waste trying to put that perfect picture up, or that show off, I've got this new boat or car, but yet when we're brutally honest with people and ourselves and we're just throw ourselves out there raw, that's where people are most interested.
Yeah, that's where I've connected the most with people. You know, I all of the videos, I have almost 1 billion views of my videos online, and every single one of them has been done with my iPhone. You know, a lot of people think that there's some, you know, mystical, magical solution or system or whatever else behind this. And there definitely are some things that can help you in that regard, but like, I mean, consistency, but I just found that being the most raw and open and real about who I was in my life and just kind of sharing it almost like a reality TV show, people just started really attaching to it. And, you know, I think we live in a day and age where there's, like you said, there's so much bullshit floating around that you don't really know what to believe anymore. And so when you find somebody that seems to share their heart and their soul and the good days and the bad days, you know, you kind of vibe with them and you connect with them. And I found that's kind of what I've been able to do really well is just connect on my story and who I am. And people gravitate towards it. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you putting yourself out there because I know you've helped a lot of people and added a lot of value to our lives. If you don't mind, I've read your book. I've seen some of your videos. I know your story. But if you don't mind, can you walk us through your story a little bit? Because I think it's really compelling, and it really set me up nicely to ask you some more questions afterwards.
Yeah, sure. You know, I was raised in a single-parent home. I mean, it's a multiple-hour conversation to share everything in detail, but I was raised in a single-parent home and found myself, you know, being an entrepreneur and successful at a young age and made a lot of money and was kind of checking off all the boxes of success and all that other stuff. I reached my 30s and I was kind of like, you know, is this it? Is this the game? You know, and I had all of the things that you would think determine success and happiness, the money, the cars, the family, the house, the vacations, the whole thing. And I found myself really unfulfilled. I found myself really miserable, for lack of better words. And so I just burned my entire world to the ground. I left my marriage. I left my business. I really didn't know who I was. I didn't know why I was doing the things that I was doing. I was working 20-hour days, and I talk about in my book how I felt like I was juggling bowling balls. Like just the weight of keeping everything going as this entrepreneur based off of like what I should look like and what life should look like. And I felt like when I was at home, I needed to be at work. When I was at work, I needed to be at home. And it just became really, really, really heavy. And I was super angry. I was pissed off at life and why was it, you know, this way. And so I ended up, like I said, burning everything to the ground. And I spent, about 1.5 years trying to figure out the bigger picture of, you know, why I was even here. You know, making money had never really been hard. I'd always been kind of a hustler and an entrepreneur, but it was like, what am I doing this for? If I'm not happy, like what's the purpose of all of this? And so I went on this journey just trying to figure out why the hell I was even here, and found in that process that, you know, I needed to learn some things. I needed to understand like who I was. And more than anything, I needed to start telling the truth. You know, I was under the impression that this alpha thing was like, we just beat our chest and go out and make a bunch of money and have kids and just show up and be a fucking man. And, you know, we don't cry and we don't share stuff and we, you know, put our big boy pants on and just solve shit. And, that wasn't working. And I see now today, obviously in our culture and our society, it's not working for a lot of men. Is the male suicide rate is at an all-time high. And there's a lot of people that are really unhappy. And so, I went on a journey of trying to figure out who the hell I really was. And in that process, I started seeing that my inability to share the truth is really what was holding me back. And so I started sharing that truth, and it was super hard. It was really vulnerable. It was dark. It was, you know, not pleasant. It wasn't socially acceptable, if you will. But at the end of the day, I found two things. I found, number one, that I felt better. And number two, that I wasn't alone. That there were millions of people out there that felt like I felt and thought how I thought. And as I've kind of continued down this path, I've just found that the more I share who I am and the more I open up and become vulnerable and real, the more I connect with people and I feel better. So that's kind of what's led me to, you know, where I am today and launching my company and Lions Not Sheep and you know, doing a lot of coaching and consulting with people around the world on not how to, you know, necessarily it's not hard to make money. I mean, there's people making money selling rocks with words on it. You know what I mean? Like the bigger picture is, how do I live life?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I find more and more is people want to live life. They're like trying to figure out, how the hell do I live life? You know, and I've got a house and kids and payments and business and work and all this other stuff, but people are just trying to figure out how to live life. And that's something that I'm grateful for, that I went through what I went through to bring me to this point that I'm at now. I
got to tell you, you know, and oftentimes I felt like I had it all figured out, and I've had a great career, and I've had my ups and downs, but you were an inspiration for me in one way that you probably don't even realize that you are inspiring to others. You know, just trying to figure out what my goals were and where I wanted to be in life. And you went horseback riding with your daughter, and maybe this was a year and a half ago, and you guys were unloading the trailer, and you were talking about, you know, this is just, you know, what you love doing and the time you get to spend with your daughter. And I told myself, I want to do that with my daughters. And I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and literally wrote that goal down right after seeing you in that Instagram on your iPhone post. And I think it was raining or snowing or some shit. And
snowing, yeah.
You know, I was like, I want to be that dad. And a year and a half later, I just moved to Montana, West Valley, Kalispell, and we've got the horse property, and by spring we'll have the horses, and I'll be doing that with my daughter. So thank you for that, because your visuals, putting it into our minds and helping us to aspire to live that life, right? It wasn't about money. It's just about the time you're spending with your daughter, you know?
You know, I'm glad that you said that, because that's what I think a lot of people have a misconception about, especially men. They think it's about money. Well, it's easy for you because, or you have some money, and so it's easy for you to do that. And what people don't realize is I didn't have jack shit. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't grow up with money. When I went through my bankruptcy and my divorce, I lost millions. I hit the complete reset button. I went from self-made multimillionaire to literally like not a dime in the freaking bank to rebuilding again. So what people, I think, are really trying to, the people are struggling with, especially men, is like that balance of, you know, living life and understanding that life, like what we're trying to build, it's not about the money. You know what I mean? This might be a dad taking his son fishing. I mean, you know, our parallel is in racing. I didn't grow up racing. I didn't ride a dirt bike till I was almost 25 years old. So about 3.5 years ago, a buddy of mine flew me to, he's got a very successful trophy truck team here in Utah, and he was going down to the Baja 1000, and he hit me up one day and said, "Hey man, do you want to fly down on our jet and come hang out at the Baja 1000 with us and just do some social media for me and teach me how to do social media?" He's running a $400 million a year company. I said, "Sure, man." Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I had never raced before in my life. And I went down there and I watched him cross the finish line in his trophy truck, and he got in a helicopter and he flew out and he jumped in the Razor with his son. His son was racing a Razor. His son was 15 at the time, I believe. And I watched him and his son cross the finish line in their Razor, the Baja 1000. Again, I had never raced before. I had no history. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. And I got super emotional, and I was watching him and his son there, and I was like, dude, this is the game. Like, yeah. I want this. Yeah. Like, I want to do this. And so I literally FaceTimed my son, who was 10 years old at the time. And I said, "Hey, bud," like, he was super excited. I was down there and kept texting me, "Dad, you know, from his mom's phone, how is it? Is it cool?" And I'd send him the pictures of the BJ Baldwin's truck and, you know, Robbie's truck and the whole thing. And I FaceTime, I said, "Dude, do you want to do this with me?" And of course, a little motorhead at 10 years old, was like, "Hell yeah, Dad." And so I came home, and it was that mentality for me. It wasn't about money. I was like, dude, buying a $500,000 trophy truck, it's not in my wheelhouse right now. I don't know what I'm doing. So I called some friends, and they said, just start with, like, you know, an entry level deal, like start with a Razor or a, you know, smaller class truck. And so I literally got online, found a truck, called one of my buddies, who had worked with the Nitro Circus for quite a while. And I said, "Dude, I'm buying this truck. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know if this is good, if this is bad. Will you meet me in Vegas? Or will you come down to Vegas with me to meet this guy? He's coming up from California with this race truck." And we went down there, and I literally unloaded this race truck from this guy's trailer onto my trailer. And I looked at my buddy. I'm like, "All right, now what?" And we drove to Lake Havasu, and literally 30 days later, man, I kid you not, you know, it was really funny. Right after I bought the truck, not very many people know this, but we drove to Lake Havasu because he had some friends down there that were racers, and they were going to teach me how to drive. Yeah. And so I'd never driven